Okay, so the project today is that I went inside and forgot the lumber. The project today is to make an end table, to pull out the rudimentary designs. It's gonna be hard probably to follow this, but what we're doing is I'm gonna build a top, and then I'm gonna put 4 legs on it that are gonna have a high cross beam set up between them, so that's what we're working on. Basically, I'm setting it so that's at the same height for that. So we are done with that. Now I can take my earplugs out, and I've basically put myself a channel on either one of those, and what that's going to allow me to do is to join all of it together. I feel like look like a Sally. Putting that dust protection, all that other ear protection, but I'll tell you what, you only got one set of ears, you only got one set of lungs, and that is totally worth it to be safe with that stuff. So now what we've got this. Oops. Setting these up like that. I'm gonna cut some pieces to join those together. That is not going to be perfectly level, but we're going to join them like that, and I'm going to create one panel by putting all those together. And I realize those are not exactly the same because they were cut all at different times, but it'll be good enough where I can take it, then sand it down and get it all set up. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to take and cut some rips. So basically it's going to give me a tongue, so I can put an artificial tongue that's going to fit down in there. So that's the next thing that I'm going to cut out. Real question is, how wide should those strips be? If I know that each one of these has a depth of, I could probably cut it an inch. Yeah, if I cut it an inch wide, that'll give me what I need. It needs to be about 18 inches long. So we're going to be taking this and doing some measuring and doing some drawing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my speed square, square out my distance, and actually the cool thing about a speed square is I've got these, the reason I call it a speed square is it's supposed to help you do everything really quickly. It's got these notches at 1 inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, inch and 3/4, 2 inches. So for example, if I lay this down here, it's got a factory edge, and I just set it at that 1 inch mark, I can just drag my, of course this is if I get on the other side of this, drag that all the way to me, very quickly and very efficiently mark myself off a 1 inch line. So next step, I'm going to take and I'm going to set the depth of this pretty shallow, because all I need is just barely any of that to rip through there, and I don't need a ton of blade underneath there, making a mess for me. Not super important that these be like a super clean finish cut, because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to take this, and this is going to fit down in this slot just like that, and I'm going to take that I'm going to take one other piece just like it, the full length, and that is going to join those two together, and that is going to make one solid piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this. I'm then going to put glue in each side, and then I'm going to stick that down in it. And I think what's cool is you're going to get multiple grains, multiple looks on either side as you go to add these things together, and really quickly I have a very unique looking table. And I'ma see the world through some whiskey glasses, and I'm done with that. I don't know if you've noticed, but rearrange things kind of up on this shelf, put a piece of wood in there, put a piece of plywood down there. Actually need to cut that so that fits all well. Kind of like this shelf, that piece of wood just supports this wireframe. There's no way that it would support all of that weight in the way that it does here. And this up here just gives me a nice spot out of the way where I can work and not worry about losing any of that stuff. Okay, so the next thing that we're doing is we're gonna start fitting some stuff. That means that I'm also looking for a little bit of glue. Okay, and the glue doesn't necessarily give it the strength. The glue does hold it together. And these are tight enough that they're not gonna go anywhere. So this is my centerpiece here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to match these up as best I can. And that actually looks pretty good. Gives me a ton more room to work, actually. Okay, got that one. So it didn't finish that router trail all the way out here. So my real question is, do I want to start it here and break that say there? What I really want to do is just run a router through this real quick. Okay, now that I've successfully dry fit this, you know what we're doing. Pull that sucker loose. Piece of wood right now, and what I'm doing, the reason that I didn't like square all of this up is I'm actually going to take this, fit this like this, and then I'm gonna square the edges off and cut some notches in each one of them. So the next thing that I'm going to do here, I'm going to lay this out flat, and I'm going to add first clean like that is going to turn out beautifully. So I'm going to let that set up. We're going to cut some legs next. So the next thing that we're doing is I'm cutting out my legs. And what I've planned is 4 18-inch legs on this. So we're going to make each cut one at a time. I'm trying to think if there's a way that I can do this from a jig format where I can cut them, you know, 18 1/4, and then come back and cut them all at the same time, which actually I think I can do. So I'm going to randomize the cut here a little bit, and I'll show you what I'm going to do from a jig standpoint. Just that last one I'm going to cut in. So it's not a select piece of pine, and I actually might go a little bit further down and select this portion down here. Let's make a cut and take a look. So you can see the difference in the quality and the grade here, but what I was thinking that I would do is get them all 18 inches, start with them flush at one end, and then turn around and mark one of them at 18 and cut the whole lot at 18, if that makes a whole bunch of sense to any of you guys. That's not going anywhere. Pretty uniform. Now the next step is I can make a cut at my length here, and that's going to give me a uniform cut all the way across this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look, see what my measurement is. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. It could be 18 inches, it could be 19 inches, which in this case, I'm really contemplating maybe making a mark at. Let's do 18. I'm going to let that blade stop once I get to the bottom, just so as it comes back through it doesn't pick up any of these, because as it comes up, I've had it kick back before. I've had it also chip the wood as it goes through, but now if we take a look at what we just did, that is a uniform length on this. Pretty cool. The next thing that we're doing now is taking these legs and creating cross pieces. So let's take this for an example. Actually, this is a piece of good pine. I'm going to have two legs, okay? And at the very top of those legs, in between them, I'm going to have a piece just like this that is going to fit to hold those two legs up, or together. And then in between, we're going to have another piece that goes from here that's going to go straight across, and that piece is going to look like this. And that's going to provide the stability for the legs. So there's going to be two different places that are going to get stability. I am going to take, I don't have a Craig jig, but what I am going to do is that any time that you take a screw and you put it into the end of a board like this, there's not a lot of strength in that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to drill them at an angle so that that screw will go through there like that, and that will allow it to bite all the way up in there, and I can take and put a 3-inch screw, and that will give me a lot of strength and will hold this joint because things are at an angle rather than directly in like this. If they're in like this, it can move a lot, okay, because there's room between those fibers, and then additionally it can pull out. We're using screws, so that's probably not as much of a concern, but that is something that we're thinking about. So as we put these together, again, keep in mind that we're going to screw from the bottom up through the joint, add a 45, and bury that. Now the nice part is I'm not going to have any screws on the outside. You're not going to see any of that. Okay, so after a brief hiatus, we are back. This is our piece that we've bound together. You can see that's a Mortise and tenon joint, and I'm just going to take and I'm going to sand down that surface. It's not perfect, but that's kind of what is cool about it. I've got it clamped right now. It's being glued. Pretty okay with where that is at. Now, the last thing that you would have seen is that we've taken and cut it, created a jig and cut our legs. So now that gives me 4 legs. And now the real question is figuring out how big is this table going to be. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is a little bit of measuring. I'm looking at the width here, obviously, and I see that that is going to be 10.5 inches here. So what I'm looking at when I put these legs together, I'm going to take these legs, and I've been debating as to whether or not they'll sit like this, or whether or not they'll actually sit like this. What I'm thinking about right now is probably like so. Okay, so we're gonna measure the distance between those two. I know that my total distance of 10.5 also has to include my width here. That means that my total width is gonna be, this is a total of 3 inches there as well. So my 10, subtracting the 3, gives me a 7-inch piece, and that's what we're cutting next. If you look straight down this, you can see that there are some edges here. I'm just going to take that and hit it with a sander real quick. Okay, so the next thing that we're looking at is where we're actually going to square this table off at. I kind of like the size and everything that we've got going here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that there. This end. Same thing, just going to trim it down like that, put my square over, meet that line on this side, carry that line across. I'm going to do the same thing down here, find my line, and I'm just going to take that across. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get out the circular saw, and we're going to make a cut. And you noticed earlier when we had the circular saw out that I had the height setting changed. So anytime that I'm cutting a different material, go ahead and release my back portion here, and I set that for very close to the depth of the material that I'm cutting. So I don't have a bunch of teeth going through a material that they don't need to cut. So the next thing we're doing is we're just going to trim this board up. Next thing that I've got is now a cutout on each corner that I'm going to do with a jigsaw. And I'm going to take one of these pieces just to confirm it's roughly the same size. I'm going to set that in the corner here. I want that to be real tight. So the other thing that I'm going to do is set my depth here. And again, now that we're kind of building some furniture and stuff, it's kind of a different tolerance for plus and minus. And you can see, so I'm then taking this, and this is being used to mark the size of each one of my corners. Do the same thing down here. Jigsaw out here. You know, that is a rough blade. And I think this would be a little bit better. More teeth. Okay. Take a look at what we've got here. So right now what we've got is this piece, and each one of the corners is going to have a spot for a leg that is going to sit in there. They're going to have two screws that run from that end into there. We'll see how this all works out, but that is right now what we're trying to do. Actually, probably a better way to envision it. Somebody didn't do their math right. Who would that be? Me. These pieces are not long enough. Because right now, take a look here. And I thought it was so close. Total width, 10 inches. Total width down here, 10.5 inches. It's gonna be a ½ inch longer. What's the pro to this? I don't know that there is one. Gonna tear some stuff apart though. Cool.